It's nice if somebody does the announcements, you know. We have a kit for you to already. Welcome, glad you're here tonight. For those of you who don't know, tomorrow is the retreat, and you can see that in full color here, and it also has a schedule on the back. So if you have any questions other that you can't find the answer to on here, I don't know, somebody will make something up for you if you have questions. On Tuesday, Lord willing, after the retreat, I'll be starting my seminary class, which is called the Historical Geography of the Bible, which actually means geography. It's maps. It's primarily maps. It's not all maps of having to do with the history, particularly in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament. It is a very non-lecture course. You will not be learning through listening to me go blah, 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 and writing notes down and reading books. This is not how you accomplish anything in this course. It's very right-brained. Ooh. So if you like to look at maps and you like to trace routes out of the Bible, going they went from this town to this town, and here's where the big battle was, and then Samuel brought the people to this city, and what's the significance of this city, then you're in for a good time, because you will deliver most of your own learning. And you end up with a beautiful atlas of maps based on most of the main Bible stories in the Tanakh. So if that's of interest to you, that will be on Tuesday evenings. You can read about this. Where is it on my, which color sheet is it on? It's not on the retreat. Must be on the coral colored. Here it is, top of the coral colored ones. On Thursday nights, John will be teaching apologetics, which is basically explaining the philosophical underpinnings of our faith and how to more easily explain it to other people who don't understand it. So if you have problems putting your great thoughts into words that other people can understand, you might want to teach that class. That is on, or take that class. That's on Thursday evenings. That does require a lot of lectures and reading of books. So if you enjoy that method of learning, you've got that there too. So they start, once again, on Tuesday. There are other courses the seminary is offering. It depends on which course and how it's delivered, through what mechanism it's delivered. So if you have questions about it, I believe in the foyer is a complete schedule of the possible classes for spring semester. That means it starts in January and goes through usually the beginning of May. It's not for the rest of your life. No, this is a thing I love about school. When you go to school, unless you're in a really bad school situation, and by bad I mean it never ends. One of the wonderful things about school is you start things, and then there's a middle, and then you complete things. And that is something that you do not get in your average when you're older in a job. It's just not how things go, but I enjoy having a wrap-up time fairly regularly. It always helps me get focused more. I can't see anything. Our next Saturday morning Shabbat will be on January 25th. That's next Saturday, I believe. Don't forget the blue boxes in the back are for any offerings that you can give us. We appreciate everyone's contribution. We just recently were able to reconfigure our phone system and save a whole bunch of money on our phone system. So things like that are always helpful. Give us a mental boost here, and just assure you that we are trying to do the best we can about saving our finances. I don't think we throw money at various things, although, it may find out that we are, and we could do better. So, if anything occurs to you and you'd like to bring it up with one of us, I'm sure any of us would be interested in seeing how we could deliver the same quality of service, but saving money. So, just like at your house, just pretend this is your house. What can we do better if we want to save some money? Sometimes the amount of money saved is not worth the time and the effort. How many have discovered that? I could save $3 over the course of the next 3 years. Well, no, maybe not. Not so much work for that amount. But, the same kind of struggles that we all have in our personal homes are the same kinds of things we have here, except sometimes it's a challenge here. Don't forget, your family and friends who are not able to be here or live far away, or you're interested in letting them know about a sermon that you particularly liked, they can get us. Every week we occur on Vimeo, and that is available to anyone who wants to sign into video and look under congregation Ohr Chadash. John and I have been surprised by people literally saying, I listened to your sermon a couple weeks ago on this, and we go like, oh, you did. We know it's available, but it's really amazing that people would take the time and effort to do that. So, but it is available. Now, the prayer and sharing times not on there. So when we have prayer and sharing times afterwards, they're not broadcast on Vimeo. So you can feel fairly safe to share and know that it's not going out to the interwebs and not to the universe in general. Thank you for coming tonight. This is a weird non-winter winter this week, isn't it? I keep waiting for winter that we had in December, so sort of backwards. I guess it's coming next week. And here's what I always think of. As smart as we are, and we're sending space probes into various areas of the cosmos, and yet you can't trust the weather forecast 3 days from now. Have you noticed that? Why is that? And they make us scared about what's going to happen maybe 3 days from now, and then 2 days from now they go, oh, okay, that's been revised. Oh, really? And how many space probes have you revised when you've sent them off to Saturn? I don't think you've revised those. So I just think it's interesting how our society tends to want to assure us that they know exactly what's going on with all these things that we can't control. We can't control certain things. And yet, we still have to have faith that they basically know what they're saying. And I find that is a very interesting lesson for us all. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We somewhat may know what the weather holds tomorrow. Other than that, and it goes without saying, I think I bet my son-in-law tonight that the sun would rise tomorrow. I said, I believe the sun will come up in the morning tomorrow. I'm not a betting person, but I believe that will happen. I also believe other very silly things, like when the label on a can of corn says it's a can of corn, when I open it up, that there will be corn in it. So I exhibit faith in a lot of different ways. Everybody who lives in the world exhibits faith that, for instance, when you go to sit down on the pew, that the pew will hold your weight. These are all matters of faith. And somehow we go, well, people don't like faith anymore. We use faith every day. It's a matter of who or what do we put our faith in. When we put our faith in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, for the long haul and for tomorrow, he proves to be a true and faithful leader. Thanks for coming tonight to celebrate Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
As we begin our Okay, the green light is on. Now we're on. I heard it go pound, pound, pound. That was the beating of my heart. It still doesn't sound quite right, does it?
Doesn't sound at all.
Rabbi, which mic do you have?
This is what I'm going to check. Cantor tunes, the right one. And it did respond there for a second. How about now?
Still no. Hello.
Something happened.
Hello.
Hey. Okay. That'll wake you up. Doesn't wake you up. Woke me up. We begin our service this evening by turning to pages 144 and 145. Ma Tovu. Ma Tovu, as I remind you from time to time, is in fact the response of that interesting ancient traveling prophet by the name of Balaam or Balaam. When he realized something, he realized that although he was a traveling prophet and this group of people, Israel, were traveling, somebody was traveling with them, namely the God of the universe, which is why he responded, Ma Tovu, how beautiful are your tents, your tabernacles, your dwelling places, O Israel. And the reason for that kind of response is because he realized that God was present among them. And that needs to be our realization and experience as well. We realize that we've come into the presence of the God of the universe, which is why we respond after Jenny leads us with how lovely are your tabernacles. In other words, how great it is to be in your presence, God of the universe.
Adonai, ahavti me'on betecha, umkom mishkan kevodecha. Va'ani eshtachavet be'ekra'a, evracha bifnei Adonai osi. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon, Elohim berav chazdecha, aneni be'emet yishecha. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. O Lord, through your abounding faithful love, I will come into your house, and reverently I will worship you in your holy sanctuary. I love being in your house, the place where your glory resides. Here I bow down to worship you, my Lord and Maker. Accept my prayer, O Lord, and answer with your great mercy and with your saving truth. Amen. Together? How lovely are your tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. I long, yes, I pine for the courts of the Lord. My heart joyfully sings to the living God. One thing have I asked of the Lord, that I will pursue, that I may live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the graciousness of the Lord, and to enter his sanctuary. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in the right path. With you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light.
In your light do we see light. An appropriate segue into, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say segue anymore. Nevertheless, it's a good vehicle for moving on into the lighting of the Shabbat lights. The Shabbat lights remind us that God has promised that He would go with us forever. So as we light the lights, we remember that promise, and Shabbat stands as a guarantee of that commitment.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto, v'tzivanu ad ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, our God, King of our universe, who's given us the command to light the candles of Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvoto, v'tzivanu el hayot or el goyim, v'natan lanu Yeshua Meshikenu ha'or la'olam. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who sanctified us by your commandments and commanded us to be a light for the nations, and gave us Yeshua, our Messiah, the light of the world. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.
We focus on the one who will light up the world, and we'll certainly do that in the Messianic age, the time of eternal Shabbat. But in the meantime, he has ascended to the place of ultimate authority, as in fact pictured by the ancient rabbis. I was going to say the ancient rabbis of old. I guess if they're ancient, they're of old.
Yeah.
But either way, they envision just that scene, the one that we enter into on pages 40 and 41 as we respond with Elohim Asher.
Elohim asher diber, v'katem pamim rabot, u'virachim avot el havot, v'yad haneviim. Diber aleinu behakarit, hayamim ha'ele, v'yad habein asher. Someday Oresh Kol, Yado, Kamasa et Ha'olamim, Uzohar Kevodo, Veselem Asmuto, Venosei Kol Devaro, Rav Havavura, In the past, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets at many times in various ways. But now, in the end of days, He has spoken to us by the Messiah, His Son, whom He appointed the heir of all things, and through whom He made the universe. The Son is the full radiance of God's glory, and the flawless manifestation of His reality. He sustains all things by His powerful word. After He made atonement for sins, He sat down in the place of authority, beside the majesty in heaven. True and firm, established and lasting, right and faithful, loved and treasured, desired and pleasant, feared and mighty, ordered and acceptable, good and beautiful is this word to us forever and ever.
We remain in that throne room scene as we turn to our Tehillat Chadash portion for this evening, page 138 and 139, the top of those pages. And as is our custom, so we would adhere to our custom. I'll lead you in those parts that are not in quotation marks. You get the parts that are in quotation marks. If you're unsure as to what a quotation mark looks like, Google it after the service. And I do mean after the service. The Kol Gadol Lemor, HaYeshua Leloheinu, HaYoshev Al HaKisei Velaseh. And they cried out in a loud voice,
Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, to receive power and wealth and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and praise.
Then I heard every creature in heaven and on earth, under the earth and on the sea, and all that is in them, singing,
To him who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb, be praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever. Amen. Praise and glory and wisdom and thanks and honor and power and strength be to our God forever and ever. Amen.
We have, in a sense, stepped into that throne room scene where we see him seated. Sephardi Kaddish, pages 156 and 157, then expresses our desire that we will get to see him step off that throne, so to speak, and return to earth. As we say, may he bring about the reign of his kingdom and cause his salvation to sprout. Words directly taken from the daily prayers. Term Yeshua will show up there. And bring near his Messiah in your lifetime. That is our hope. We express that now as we continue to offer our worship and our gratitude to him. Pages 156 and 157, Jenny leads, we respond.
יתגדל ויתקדש שם רבה, בהלמד יברח חירותי, וימלך מלכותי, ויצמח פורקני, ויקרב משיחי, וחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, ביגל ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי לקודשא בריחו. לעילא מן כל ברכתה, וישרתה תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים טובים עלינו, ועל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרמיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו, ועל ישראל ואמרו amen. Glorified and sanctified be his great name in the world, which is created according to his will. May he bring about the reign of his kingdom, and cause his salvation to sprout, and bring near his Messiah in your lifetime and in your days, and in the life of all the house of Israel, speedily, yes, soon, and let us say, Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and forever, eternally. Blessed and praised, glorified and exalted, extolled and honored, adored and lauded be the name of the Holy One, blessed be he, who is high above, far above all blessings and hymns, and praises and consolations which are spoken in the world, and say, Amen. May there be great peace from heaven, and good life for us and for all Israel, and say, Amen. He who makes peace in the heavenly realms, may he make peace for us and for all Israel, and let us say, Amen.
He is high above, far above all blessings and hymns, praises and consolations and so forth, and we continue to extend those to him out of gratitude for what he has done for us. And we're reminded of that reality when we respond on pages 44 and 45 with the paragraph that includes Mika Mocha. It's the song at the sea. It's a reminder that God is the one who continues to go go with us wherever we go. Just as, in fact, we contemplated and Balaam understood in Matovu. So we now emphasize that same reality on pages 44 and 45. Praise our exalted God. Blessed is he who is to be blessed. Moses and the people of Israel sang a song to you with great joy. As they all said, we now all say,
Who is like you, O Lord among the gods? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awesome in praises, doing wonders? Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh felei. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot oseh felei.
And of course, the answer comes back as we respond on pages 88 and 89. Truly, there is none like you, O Lord, among the gods. Not only because of his greatness, but because of his nearness to us in having promised to go with us wherever we go. So pages 88 and 89 is our response, as Jenny once again leads us.
Ein kmo Elohim Adonai va'ein k'maasecha, Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha b'chol dor v'dor. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Adonai hoz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Together, there is none like you among the gods, my Lord, and there is nothing that compares to your deeds. Your kingdom is a kingdom that endures for all eternity, and your sovereignty extends throughout all generations. The Lord reigns, the Lord has reigned, the Lord shall reign throughout eternity. The Lord will bless his people with peace.
He is the God who provides us with peace as we understand the reality that we get to enter into even here, and that is standing in the presence of the God of the universe. As you're reminded above the ark, Dalifnei mi ata omed. Know before whom it is that you stand. We stand before the God of the universe, the God who promises they will come and redeem his people. And we can add, yet again, the Amidah paragraphs are paragraphs 1 through 3, pages 66 to 71. It reminds us of the greatness of our God, as well as the graciousness of our God. So utilize these words to express your gratitude to him. Mi kamoka ba'al yivurot. Who is like you, Lord of might, and who can be compared to you, O King? You cause death and you cause life. As we say, Matzmiah, carrying Yeshua. You bring to life, or you cause to flourish your salvation. You're faithful to bring the dead to life. Baruch atah Adonai mechayei hametim. Blessed are you, O Lord, you raise the dead. Which is why we sanctify your name in the world, as they sanctify it in the highest heavens. As it is written by your prophet, they call to each other, and they say,
Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. All the earth is full of his splendor. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzedakot melech kol haaretz kevodo.
Then across from them comes back this resounding response.
Praise, praise be the splendor of the Lord. Everywhere it is manifest. Baruch kavod Adonai, min kavod.
And in the holy writings we are further told,
The Lord shall reign forever, your God, O Zion, for all generations. Yimlok Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion l'dor v'dor. Hallelujah.
and so in every generation we will tell of your greatness. In every age we will proclaim your holiness. Your praise will certainly never depart from our lips, for you are a great and holy God and King. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Blessed are you, O Lord, you are the holy God. He is the great and holy God and King, and it's that last part we now emphasize as we turn to pages 34 and through 39, and we once again affirm that we want him to be king over our lives, every part of our lives, as we respond to him, in a sense, every fiber of our being. Pages 34 and 39.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malakuto Leolam Vayed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha le'olavavka u'kol nafshecha u'kol me'edecha. Ve'hayu ha'dvarim ha'eleh asher Elohim esafka hayom alecha. Ve'shinantam levanecha ve'yivarta bam ve'shivtecha bebetecha u'vektecha ha'vaderech u'shaktecha u'kumecha u'shatam be'yota yadecha ve'hayu latotafot be'nenecha u'ktavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. Blessed be he whose glorious kingdom is eternal. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your life, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates.
The Torah on our hearts, the Torah on the doorframes of our houses and on our gates, tied as reminders on our hands and on our foreheads. That Torah will in fact go forth from Jerusalem, the word of the Lord from Mount Zion, as we are reminded with the response, Vayehi b'Sor, pages 88 and 89.
Vayehi b'Sor ha'aron, vayomer Moshe, Kol ha'adonai vayafutzu levacha, veyanusu misanecha mipanecha, ki Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael, B'Kdushato. And it came to pass, whenever the ark went forward, Moses would say, Arise, O Lord, and let your enemies be scattered. May those who hate you flee from before you. For from Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord out of Jerusalem. Blessed be he who in holiness gave the Torah to his people Israel.
He gave us his Torah, and as his people we now respond. On page 133 plus the insert.
The ark now unveils its treasure.
To our eyes and minds and hearts.
Inside, the scroll of Torah stands.
It stands there with all its richness and wisdom.
As we listen, voices speak, voices of our ancestors.
Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Joseph, and Moses.
O God, they bring us your instructions for us.
Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and Miriam speak to us as well.
O God, they move us to respond to your promises to us.
We are grateful for your words, the words of Torah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord calls.
We will hear your words if we may learn them, love them, live them.
What does the Lord require of you? To fear him, love him, serve him, and walk in all his ways.
All the Lord has said, we will do.
The Torah of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The teaching of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple.
The precepts of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes.
Happy is the one that walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful.
But our delight is in the Torah of the Lord, and in his Torah we will meditate day and night.
We shall be like a tree planted by streams of waters that brings forth its fruit in its season,
Whose leaf does not wither, and in whatever we do shall prosper.
A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you.
For my ordinances which I command you are not too difficult for you, neither are they far off.
Do we make the Torah void through faith? Not at all. We establish Torah.
So then a Torah is holy, and the commandment is holy, just, and good.
That the righteous requirements of Torah might be fully met in us, who do not live according to our evil inclinations, but according to the Ruach Hashem.
The day will come when my Torah will flow from Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Mishabarak Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov. He who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May he bless Rabbi John. May he bless Alex. May he bless Janice. And may he bless Virginia, who have come up to honor God and the Torah. May the Holy One bless them and their families, and send blessing and prosperity on all the work of their hands. Baruch et Adonai Mavorach. Baruch Adonai Hamrach Ve'elam Vayed. Baruch Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, ונתן לנו את תורתו, ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה.
Amen.
Bless the Lord who is blessed. Bless the Lord who is blessed forever and ever. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who chose us from all peoples and gave to us the Torah. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
ואלה שמות בני ישראל הבאים מצרימה
את יעקב איש וביתו באו, ראובן, שמעון, לוי, ויהודה. You may be seated. These are the names of the children of Israel who went out from Egypt with Jacob, each one and his family who went out. And then the names begin: Reuven, Shimon, or Reuben, Simeon, Levi. This is the one that got me tongue-tied because you're used to saying Yehudah, and in this particular case it's Vihudah. So, and Judah. And then the names continue. And then after the names continue, the story goes on. But more on that story shortly. In the meantime, it's your turn, and let's see if you get tongue-tied as we go through here. So if you'll bring out the inside of your bulletin, and we follow along. It's interesting to note, as you're looking, that God emphasizes names. By the way, names not just in that I'm called John and she's called Jenny or whatever, but names had a deeper, how should I put it, a deeper understanding in ancient days, in that a name reflected who you were, your character, your conduct, and sometimes your position. So names are important to God, and that also reminds us of another reality. God knows us all by name, and that's amazing. Anyhow, now that I've prepared you for the reading, please follow along. Ve'ele Shemot b'nei Yisrael u'ba'im Mitzrayma et Yaakov ish uveito ba'u. And here we go. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Vihuda. Very good. And now we're ready to hear something from later on in that text.
Exodus 3:12 through 17. He replied, I will surely be with you. Your sign that I have sent you will be that when you have led the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain. Moshe said to God, look, when I appear before the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What am I to tell them? God said to Moshe, Eyeh Asher Eyeh, and added, here is what to say to the people of Israel. Eyeh has sent me to you. God said further to Moshe, say this to the people of Israel. Yud-He Vav-He, Adonai, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how I am to be remembered generation after generation. Go, gather the leaders of Israel together, and say to them, Adonai, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me and said, I have been paying close attention to you, and I have seen what is being done to you in Egypt. And I have said that I will lead you up out of the misery of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, to the land flowing with milk and honey.
An amazing passage that deserves a whole drash or month's worth on it. And you'll notice we left the Hebrew intact, but it was translated for you into the English if you listen carefully. I will go with you, and I will lead you up. That's the name of God, our God forever.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam eta b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, ruler of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and life everlasting, planted in our midst. Blessed are you, Lord, giver of the Torah.
He gave to us the Torah. We'll read about it in just a few weeks as we move on through the book of Shemot or Exodus. But in the meantime, we put ourselves into the places of our ancestors as they stood before God to acknowledge that God had spoken to them. So we stand before God and acknowledge that God has spoken these words, not only to them, but to us as well. V'zod Torah is that response. That's found on pages 98 and 99. If you need a transliteration, that's page 95.
Bezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai beyad Moshe. This is the Torah which Moses placed before the children of Israel. It is in accord with the Lord's command by the hand of Moses.
You may be seated.
I'll be reading from Genesis chapter 50, verses 19 through 26. But Yosef said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You meant to do me harm, but God meant it for good, so that it would come about as it is today, with many people's lives being saved. So don't be afraid. I will provide you and your little ones. I will provide for you and your little ones." In this way he comforted them, speaking kindly to them. Yosef continued living in Egypt, he and his father's household. Yosef lived 110 years. Joseph lived to see Ephraim's great-grandchildren and the children of Manasseh's son Machir were born on Joseph's knees. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am dying, but God will surely remember you and bring you up out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." Then Joseph took an oath from the sons of Israel. "God will surely remember you, and you are to carry my bones up from here." So Joseph died at the age of 110, and they embalmed him and put him in a coffin in Egypt.
Joseph's words impacted the lives of his family and their descendants. These words should impact our lives as well, and that is the prayer then we offer up to our God as we respond with Etz Chaim, pages 96 and 97. Yes, that's right, 96 and 97. And we ask, renew our days as of old. Make our lives follow the patterns, the models of our ancient ancestors.
Etz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba, v'tom cheha meushar, deracheha darchei noam, v'kol nativoteha shalom. life it is to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us, Lord, to you, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
Earlier, we reminded ourselves we stand in the presence of the God of the universe. We've come now to the place where we have the understanding of the reality that we stand as his priests in his presence. So I invite you to join me in standing as we respond on pages 98 and 99. Uvnu Ho Yomar.
Uvnu Ho Yomar Shuvah, Adonai Rivavot Alfei Yisrael. When the ark rested, Moses would say, Return, O Lord, to the myriads of Israel's families. Arise, O Lord, to your resting place, you and your mighty ark. Clothe your priests with righteousness. May those who have experienced your faithful love shout for joy. For the sake of your servant David, don't delay the return of your Messiah. Ba'avor David Abdecha. Al teshev penei mishachecha. Ki lakach tov nadati lachem. Torati al ta'azovu. I give you good instruction. Do not forsake my Torah.
As we greet one another up here, I invite you to greet one another, those who are nearby.
Hey, it's good to see you. Nice handshake. One up, one down. Likewise. Shabbat shalom. Good to see you too. Good to see you, good to hear. All right, I think we're set. Good.
Well, we've now almost caught up to that clock. And in a few minutes, it'll be right for the second time today. Shabbat school is excused. Setting the stage for Exodus, or Shemot, the book of Genesis, Bereshit, concludes with, of all things, the image of a coffin. Amazing. What's it all about? The text says, and Joseph took an oath to the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you. Let me stop briefly. The God who goes with us. Joseph understood this. In fact, by the way, as we looked at it last week, Joseph also reminded his brothers and their families that God had shepherded him. He had actively been Joseph's shepherd. Anyhow, and you shall carry up my bones from here. So Joseph died, 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put in a coffin in Egypt. And so the story ends. And appropriately, the beginning of the book of Exodus, Shemot, refers back to this. In the line or line and a half after I stopped reading, the text goes on to say, Vayamat Yosef, and Joseph died. So Joseph dies, he's embalmed, he's placed in a coffin in Egypt, and the story ends there. Now this sure seems like a rather negative ending for the magnificent first book, the book of beginnings, of all kinds of beginnings and amazing events, the first book of the Torah, Bereshit, or in the beginning. Now, the rabbinic commentators don't say a great deal about it, but on the other hand, some Christian commentators see the conclusion of Genesis as clearly negative, revealing, and I quote, the hopelessness of the human condition apart from divine redemption, end quote. What? We should be asking, even if you understand the English. The book of Hebrews, however, provides the key to understanding this conclusion. It says, Hebrews 11:22, by faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and commanded them concerning his bones. Amazing. Understanding that reality. By faith. Dr. Patrice mentioned faith at the very beginning. An important understanding, an important reality that we all participate in. But in this case, we would say faith in what? Well, hang on. So the coffin in Egypt becomes an emblem of hope. Not usually an image we would associate with hope. But as I promised you last week, that I would reflect on the coffin as a symbol of hope. Here's that reflection in the fulfillment of that promise. An emblem of hope, a clear and concrete sign that this story is not yet over. And so the text in Hebrews says, Joseph made mention of the departing of the children of Israel, telling them twice that God would definitely visit them. In other words, would go with them. This reminds us of the text, the parsha from this week that was read, the burning bush text. It reminds us of the God who in that text promised to walk with us and to go with us. It reminds us of the Passover and the Exodus. It reminds us of the Red Sea and Sinai and the covenant that God gave at that particular point. God did literally show up among them. And it says, and he would bring them out of Egypt. So God promises liberation, and Joseph believes that promise. Well, where did he know of that promise? Well, God had promised it to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob, the great covenant promises. Chapter 12 of Genesis, chapter 15 of Genesis, chapter 17 of Genesis. He promised it twice, in fact, to Jacob, chapters 28 and 35 of Genesis. He believed the promise. Therefore, the ending of Genesis is like the next to the last scene. And we'll see how good your memories are. In the old Star Wars movie, not the one that's presently out. The next to last scene in the Empire Strikes Back. And the scene is that Han Solo is frozen solid by his Imperial captors and then lowered into a vault. A frosty mist swirls about him and the music fades away. And as that happens, all you can think of is sequel coming. Sequel coming. Well, we finally, after a number of movies and a couple of decades, got to the end of the sequels, I think. But if you watched Rise of Skywalker, you're not quite sure that there isn't yet another sequel to come. But anyhow, my point back here at The Empire Strikes Back is it may look like a defeat, but it shouts, it literally screams perhaps that victory is certain to come. Well, as Genesis concludes then, we can believe that we only have to wait for the sequel, when the promise in fact will be fulfilled. In the book of Exodus, however, we learn that something happens first. And the text goes on to say in chapter 2, verse 22, it was many years later that the king of Egypt died. The children of Israel groaned from their slavery, and they cried out, and their plea of help went up to God from their slavery. God heard their moaning. It's amazing. He was listening to them. God called to mind. He remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob, just as Joseph had earlier. God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. So reads one of the Jewish translations, which raises the question, what did God know? I mean, the Torah describes God as taking four actions here. We have the fact that the children of Israel groan, and the Lord hears, he remembers, he looks, and he knows. Now look, we understand that God knows everything. So various translations supplement this final phrase with words like, God took notice of them. God acknowledged them. But the Hebrew is clear enough, and God knew. Period. However, this is a term that implies intimacy. It implies involvement. It implies concern and compassion. It implies the very name of God at the bush, where God said, I will go with you. And then we're especially reminded of the reflection on God's name at that bush. The reflection by the great rabbi 11th century, Rashi, who said, as he elaborated on this name, I will go with you and with your children, even through the exiles and captivity. Very well unwrapped. Therefore, a coffin is a symbol of hope. And so the story picks up in Exodus, and we see God acting in a very clear way. Now, as it picks up in the story of Exodus, we realize that Moses is a major personality throughout the book of Exodus. Joseph was a major personality through the whole last part of the book of Genesis. In fact, over 1/4 of the book of Genesis is devoted to Joseph. And here's the interesting thing. Both are later viewed as messianic patterns, as pictures of the Messiah to come. And therefore, their interaction at the crossroads of Genesis and Exodus is very significant. So let's look at that in a little more detail. There's a fascinating interaction between these two historical giants, and this has profound ramifications for all future Jewish history. In effect, at the actual point of their intersection, that provides an inspiring lesson in faith for the children of Israel, and therefore for us as well. You will recall the story. Joseph rose to greatness in Egypt. So also with Moses. Even to the extent of his ascendancy as second only to Pharaoh. The Egyptians certainly certainly claimed him as one of their own, fully expecting him to identify with Egyptian nationality and culture. So also with Moses. Nevertheless, in his very last request to his family, which we heard read to us, before his death, he reveals his essential identity as an Israeli, emphasizing his root connection with the land and the destiny of Israel. So also with Moses. As the book of Hebrews reminds us, Moses refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter and chose instead to be mistreated with the people of God. And Joseph made the children of Israel take an oath, saying, the Lord will certainly remember you, and so you will bring out my bones from this place. Therefore we have the record in Exodus, and Moses took the bones of Joseph with him when he left Egypt, because Joseph had made the children of Israel swear, saying, the Lord will certainly remember you, and you shall bring out my bones from this place. Exodus 13. Think about it for just a second. The scene may be a little difficult one to picture. It's the night of the 15th of Nisan. The firstborn of the Egyptians are being struck down by God. They are struck with terror. And so they force the Israeli slaves to leave the country of their slavery. And so you have Israel rapidly and vigorously packing. They're not about to take the chance that Pharaoh will change his mind yet again. However, their freedom from slavery was soon threatened by the armies of Pharaoh, who did in fact change his mind once again. And so you have the Sea of Reeds and the Song at the Sea, which we focused on earlier this evening. And some of our rabbis point out that the Song of the Sea not only has to do with the past and their present, but also with the future. That it was a reality that was anticipated, much like the reality that we anticipate when we respond with the Eleno. I wish I had more time to unwrap that for you, but unfortunately, that time is not available. So I want to get back to the present and our story. And in fact, back to that chaotic last night in Egypt. In the middle of all of the hubbub and the turmoil, Moses, who is responsible to personally direct an orderly exodus of his people, Moses, well, he is, as we would say, AWOL. He's concerned with locating and exporting the remains of Joseph instead of leading the people out. The rabbis in the Midrashim, and the Midrash records what happened in the following way, and I'm going to quote here. Who informed Moses as to where Joseph was buried? Serach, the daughter of Asher. She came and said to Moses, Moses, my master, Joseph is buried, listen to the description midrashically, in the Nile River. Who else comes out of the Nile River or came out of the Nile River? Moses. Anyhow, Moses went and stood at the Nile. He said, Joseph, Joseph, the time has come for the Holy One, blessed be he, to redeem his children. But the divine presence, in other words, the God who would go with his people, and he's about to go with them yet again. But the divine presence is being held back because of you. If you shall reveal yourself, it will be well. If not, I shall then be considered innocent of the oath which I have sworn. Immediately, the casket ark of Joseph, I love the way the rabbis put that, the casket ark of Joseph floated to the top. Thus it was that when the Israelis went out of Egypt, 2 arks accompanied them in the desert. The Torah ark of the eternal giver of life and the casket ark of the bones of Joseph. What a stark contrast. Life, evidence of death. Anyhow, back to their story. Oh, but let me ask a question while I've got this on in a side mode. What does this indicate? Let me suggest the 2 arks indicate 2 covenants. And they are in fact intimately connected, as we'll see. Back to the Midrash. The nations of the world then said, what is the nature of these 2 arks? Is it the manner of a casket ark of the dead to go together with the Torah ark of the eternal giver of life? Well, yes, if you remembered what you said in the 2nd paragraph of the Amidah. He's the God who brings the dead back to life. Chaye HaMetim, the raiser of the dead. Back to the story. And the Israelis said to them, to the nations, the corpse, I love this, the corpse who is buried in the casket ark fulfilled whatever is written in this Torah ark. Interesting. So then how are we to understand the words of this Midrash? So how can we say that the corpse in the casket ark fulfilled the verses in the Torah ark? Torah comes later. Well, in the sense of what's delivered at Mount Sinai. Okay, this is confusing. Torah's already in place because we're coming out of Genesis into Exodus. That's Torah. But the Torah has yet to be given at the mountain. Right? About, 18, 19 chapters later on. If you're confused, that's okay. They've handled time a little differently than we do. And they could go sort of back and forth with that. Anyhow, let me get back to this. Okay. How can we say that the corpse in the casket ark fulfilled the verses in the Torah ark? Remember that Joseph did understand and profoundly believe the divinely guaranteed promise of the Torah, declared by God in his covenant with Abraham, and constantly repeated and expanded throughout the Torah. In other words, the promise is that the Israelis would eventually return to Israel. After all, the young Joseph was taught this faith commitment, as a child sitting on his father Jacob's knee. By the way, just like Moses, in his very early years, was taught in the same way. And by the way, both afterwards ended up in Pharaoh's court with this very knowledge still intact. Anyhow, so Joseph was never vanquished, and his optimistic spirit was never extinguished, despite near death in a pit, despite having been sold into slavery, despite imprisonment for false charges, because he was sustained, because his belief in the ultimate restoration and return. That's often called redemption in theological language, Israel's redemption. Because his belief in ultimate restoration and return never dimmed. He believed in the God who gave the covenant. At the end, Joseph, as you heard in the text, does not punish or even blame his brothers for the cruel acts that they perpetrated against him, because he understood that it was all part of the divine plan. You heard it read in verse 20, chapter 50. What you caused for evil, God brought about for good. So very much the nature of the God we serve. And so profound was Joseph's faith, that he risked Pharaoh's anger when he made his brother swear to take out his bones and bury him in Israel. And so the text in Hebrews reminds us, Hebrews 11:24, by faith Moses, when he had grown up, chose to be mistreated along with the people of God. By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. And so, as with Moses, so also Joseph was then able to say, as we've heard, the Lord will remember, certainly remember you. So, is it then any wonder that Moses could never leave Egypt without taking Joseph's bones with him? Joseph's bones were the symbol of Jewish destiny, the proof of the divine covenant, the guarantee of Jewish identity, the expression of faith in the God of the covenant. And they anticipated yet another covenant which would reaffirm and expand it, a covenant that God gave through Moses, which we acknowledge when we responded to the Zot HaTorah. No matter how good or how bad life in a country of exile may be for us as Jews and those who joined us, we must never think that the host country is our ultimate resting place. We're reminded in that chapter of Hebrews that I've quoted now a couple times, Hebrews chapter 11, of the various models and patterns for our faith who looked for a city to come. And then in chapter 13, we're given the encouragement, the exhortation, for here we don't have an enduring city. We are looking for a city that is to come. As Joseph said, the Lord will certainly remember you. And this is exactly what God did. He remembered his people in Exodus 2. And he promised to Moses at the burning bush that he would do exactly that. And so, we must never be too comfortable in the exile, nor should we despair from the suffering in the exile. This is the message of Joseph's bones, and it's a message of the fiery bush, and it's the message of the very name of God. And it is what Rashi reminded us of, that God had promised that he would go with us, even to the extent of the exile and the captivity. And it's the message of the Song of the Sea. There's no one like our God. Joseph instinctively understood the lesson at the burning bush. The children of Israel may be burned by the fires of persecution and pogroms, slavery and genocide, but they will never be consumed or destroyed. The God of the bush guarantees it, and hence the reading of the God of the burning bush in conjunction with the bones of Joseph. And he goes, not only does he guarantee it, he also goes through it all with us. Remember, as Joseph said, the Lord will remember. He certainly will remember you. The bones will be returned to Israel, and the dry bones will live again, as Ezekiel 37 reminds us. Joseph, who was buried in a casket ark, believed in the promise written in the Torah ark. And Jewish history today confirms yet again the covenant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Now we carry, as it were, the bones of Joseph, seared in the Intifada, the Inquisitions, and the Holocaust. We, in a sense, carry them when we walk the streets of Dizengoff and King George in Jerusalem. Oh, by the way, according to the Midrash, Serach, whom I mentioned earlier, not only revealed to Moses the whereabouts of Joseph's bones, but also, the story goes on to say, many years before whispered into Jacob's ear, Joseph still lives. By the way, I mentioned this last week. I did look up the name of the person I was referring to last week. Many years ago, in this very sanctuary, we had an archaeological presentation, and we were shown a striking, dramatic slide of Joseph's tomb in Egypt. The archaeologist was David Rohl, R-O-H-L. You can look up some of the books he's written. The tomb, the empty tomb of Joseph. No wonder then we have Mashiach ben Yosef as the resurrected Messiah. We also have, by the way, if you would call it Moses' phantom burial. Moses is buried, but no one knows where. And yet, you know what happens? He shows up on another mountain centuries later in the presence of Yeshua. Yes, Joseph still lives. The greater Joseph, Mashiach ben Yosef, son of Joseph, still lives. His tomb, like Joseph's, stands starkly empty. Quick commercial before I close. And we'll talk about the evidence that stands behind that and that we have for it in the apologetics course. End of commercial. Joseph still lives. The greater Joseph still lives. And our Father still lives. Because our Father in heaven still lives, his children on earth will live eternally. This is the message of the book of Exodus. We sing it, Od Avinu Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. God lives, or the Father lives, and so Israel lives. And Joseph's God, Moses' God, the burning bush God, as he promised, goes with us on our journey. On our journey, even though, to go back to Joseph's statement at the outset, even though, as the shepherd, he will go with us, even through the valley of the shadow of death. Take his hand as he offers it to you, and go with him. Take the next minute or so in quiet as you respond to the one who reaches out to us and promises to go with us. As we reminded ourselves not too many minutes ago, the Elena is the anticipation of the kind of story that we reflected on with the Song at the Sea. We've got a God who not only goes with us, he will go with us through to the end. And at that time, the world will be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty. We stand now, we anticipate, we respond. On pages 102 to 107.
כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום בהשבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים מעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. It is incumbent upon us to praise the Master of all, to exalt the Creator of the world, for He has made us distinct from the nations and unique among the families of the earth. Our destiny is not like theirs, our calling is our task. We bow down and acknowledge before the King of Kings that there is none like Him. For He stretched forth the heavens like a tent and established the earth. Truly there is none like our Lord and King. As the Torah says, you shall know this day and reflect in your heart that it is the Lord who is God in the heavens above, and on the earth beneath there is none else. We hope, O Lord our God, to soon behold your majestic glory, when all abominations shall be removed, and all false gods shall be eliminated. Then shall the world be perfected under the rule of the Lord Almighty, and all mankind shall call upon your name. For to you every knee must bow, and every tongue declare that you are God. Reign over us soon and forever. May the kingdom of David's greater son be established forever. For then shall the words be fulfilled. The Lord shall be king forever, and the Lord shall be king over all the earth. On that day the Lord shall be one, and his name one. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. Connie, would you be kind enough to lead us in the closing part of the service?
Sure.
Just as a reminder, this is an opportunity to share with one another stuff you would like to have the rest of the family pray about, and then stuff that you want the rest of the family to get to celebrate along with you. And you keep it short.
So, I can see that we're all family here. So what's happening? What can we be praying about for each other? Got it. Oh, John, all right.
Nobody else. We were with Art and Betty last night, and they seem to be doing pretty well, but Art started antibiotics today, and so is, in a sense, recuperating from that. They had hoped to join us Sunday for the retreat, but that looks like it's out of the question. That's one. Number two, I got a text from Shandi. She shared some stuff with us last week. Her mother had the procedure yesterday, and it seemed to have gone well. They're waiting for the test results and then what further treatment is necessary. So we need to pray about that. If I remember correctly, stage 3, is that what she said, Jenny? Stage 3. She also said, please continue to pray for the possibility of them moving back home here to us. Okay, that's me.
Shandi, yes.
I had an endoscopy done yesterday, and they found 2 polyps, which they cut out, of course, and they're getting biopsied, so praying for good results there. And also Brian and Ash are starting to happy house hunts, at least started the process of putting their house up on the market, and Ashley's got an interview, job interview, after being a stay-at-home mom, for the boys, a job interview on Tuesday. So I hope that goes well, cause seems like a good position for her, and a good fit. So they've got a lot going on there.
Tell them we miss them.
Yeah, did Richard mention by any chance that him and I had gone up to see Ann Getz?
Privately did, I don't know if it was.
Oh, well, we went up last week to see her. Keep her in prayer. She's still, in bedridden, of course. But she's aware when you go to visit her and you talk with her, and we had a really nice visit, actually. She was, had her eyes open, and she could hear everything that we were talking about, and so it was a lovely visit. I recommend people go to see, don't forget those who are sick and bedridden, because it's a real blessing. Probably more of a blessing for us than it was for her. But keep her in prayer that God would,
Okay, we will, and cats. Anything else? What can we thank God for? Besides everything. Yes.
I've asked for prayer in the past for my father and my mother-in-law, and they're doing fantastic. They're both 70, and they're really...
70?
I'm 70, I mean 90.
I'm
I'm very tired right now.
70 isn't as old as it used to be.
No. They're both 90, and they've had some really bad health issues, and honestly, they're doing really well. They're really rallying, so thank you for your prayers.
Excellent. Yes?
this is my right arm,
Yes?
and it was broken. It's still on the mend, but look how far I've come. I can even scratch the back of my head now, so I'm thankful to God. The doctor said I'm doing really well, and he says I'm not ready to hold a jackhammer yet, but I started physical therapy this week, and it seems to be going pretty well. I'm sore afterwards, but thank God it could have been a lot worse than what it is.
All right. Anything else? Okay, let's wrap up with a word of prayer. Father, thank you for the honor and the blessing of being able to come here for Shabbat and share, focus our attentions on you, and really put an ending to a very busy week, and of course that's the blessing of Shabbat. And I pray that you will hear and honor the things that have been brought before you here tonight, and help us to be mindful of them, and to be mindful of each other, and all the blessings that we share. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Connie. And we have the reminder then that we serve a God who hears and who answers prayer. And so we remind ourselves yet again, as is our custom. Shema Koleinu Eloheinu Kusvarachem Aleinu Tekabel Baraka Min Tafilateinu Baruch Ata Shamea Tefilah. Hear our voice, Lord our God. Spare us and have mercy on us. Receive in mercy and favor our prayer, because you are a God who hears prayer and supplication. Blessed are you, O Lord. You're the God who hears our prayers. And for that we're grateful, and we've seen some of that already demonstrated, or we've been reminded of that yet once again tonight. And then we've got other things, speaking of reminders. If you're missing people tonight, the likelihood is they're preparing for the retreat tomorrow. I could wish that they could be here tonight and at the retreat tomorrow, but that doesn't always work that way. So if you're missing someone tonight and you're not planning on going to the retreat, then I suggest you spend a day at the retreat, if not more, and then you'll get to see them. Is that fair enough? Information is in the flyer. The schedule is also found there. There are two things that are listed for 3:30. That is not an accident. By the way, those of you who received the schedule during the course of the week, you received another version before services started. It's a slightly revised schedule, so take the second schedule. We'll see you there. Let's see. Then, coming right up after that, retreat ends on Monday. Tuesday we begin another semester with the course Historical Geography of the Bible. I mentioned this in the hermeneutics class last semester. If you're going to really understand what's going on in the biblical text, you need to know something about the land on which it took place, because the people who read these texts knew what the land was like, and so they had already filled in that third dimension. And you'll better understand the texts of the scriptures you read if you understand the land on which it took place, as well as some of the stuff that goes along with that. All of that you get in the course, Historical Geography of the Bible. That starts Tuesday night. The course on Thursday night, there are some other courses, as Patrice mentioned before, on the schedule in the back, but if you are interested in the Thursday night class, it has to do with explaining reasons for, providing evidences of, and answering questions about your faith, both in general but also from a messianic perspective. Now, if you're torn between the two classes, there's a simple solution. One simple solution is to flip a coin. But a far better solution is to take both classes. If you've got a problem with that financially, there's financial flexibility built into the seminary. We'll be happy to work things out for you. And then, of course, no Shabbat morning service tomorrow, but informal Shabbat morning service the following week. I think that covered everything. Other than to remember, on your way out, do not leave papers all over the place. There is not only a blue box in the back, there's a cardboard box in the back. That's a recycle box. So papers back there, and we'll recycle them. That's more than enough said, and it's a good introduction then for Jenny as she comes to lead us as we now receive the blessings that God has promised to shower on us. Please rise.
And so we say, our God and God of our fathers, bless us with a threefold blessing. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, v'rachenu v'bracha ha'mishulashet. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yivunecha. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord bless you and watch over you. May the Lord cause the light of his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you with favor, and may he grant you peace. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a yom that is ever Shalom and never. Yom Shekulo Shabbat. The golden glow tonight, escape the past and race tonight. Candle flicker at dusk, daily reveals God's gift for us. The day will come, believe the day will come. The day will come, be sure the day will come. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat, a yom that is ever Shalom, never, never. Shabbat. Unto Adam was entrusted creation, and to his son Shabbat is his kingdom. The day will come, believe the day will come. The day will come, be sure the day will come. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat. A yom that is ever shalom, ever never. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat. A yom that is ever shalom, ever never. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat. A yom that is ever shalom, ever never. Yom Shekulo Shabbat, a time that is all Shabbat. A yom that is
Josie knows what's going on, so it's like. We're outside. It's okay.
leaving its right to worship our holy King. We follow our Redeemer, God lead.
Testing, testing, testing mic, testing mic.
Snip, snip, snip.
Testing, testing.
And we got to talking and we forgot.
Mine needs trimming up, yours needs trimming up. I'm so tired.
I know, I'm gonna go
Honestly.
to condition and
Thank
go
you
home.
so much. You're such a beautiful face.
Did you get in touch with Shandi? Did Shandi get in touch?
She texted me.
You need to contact her. No, you need to contact her. She needs your number. Oh, okay, today? Yes, okay, wait.
see if one of the channels is back. So. Hello? Actually, you wanna assist me?
Sure, what do you mean?
I'm just gonna go over to the board and, I hold my hand, you just say testing into the mic.
Okay. That's how Jess. We had just sold our pest control business and Justin got.
Testing. Testing. Testing.
That doesn't matter.
Testing.
That's
Testing.
okay.
Testing.
I have a funny feeling it's that channel that's being fussy.
That's what that was.
Needed it?
You're good. Thanks. That was really helpful.
Oh, sure.
Wow,
such an easy job.
But yeah, it's
So I
a
can see if I
really
can get
hard
the full
to
benefit.
I don't take offense to
Let's
that.
bring out, you think?
So,
You'd be
so
sorry,
my-
you goes.
You said to your other family?
Yeah.
So I came over on my day, but I didn't ask rabbi.
No, no,